The South African Schools Act, commonly known as SASA, was formed in 1996. It's known as Act 84 of 1996. It's aimed at ensuring all learners have access to quality education without discrimination, and makes schooling compulsory for children aged 7 to 15. It provides for two types of schools, namely independent and public schools. The Act has been implemented in public schools countrywide. There are many schools in South Africa which boast a very high level of educational standard, but these schools are very expensive and are fiercely competitive to get entry into. The school funding norms outlined in SASA of 1996 prioritize, redress, and target poverty regarding the allocation of funds for the public schooling system. There are large inconsistencies when it comes to standards of education in South Africa.
The gap between the good universities and the weaker universities is quite significant. So the poor universities are not so good, poor academically, and they tend to be historically black universities. The differences between poorer kids and richer kids are quite stark. So the richer kids are going to have success rates in the order of about 80%, the poorer kids around about 40–50%.
During apartheid, education wasn't available to all South African children. Young black children were separated from the white South African students. The schools and education provided to whites was at a much higher standard to those found in the townships where a majority of black students lived. Once apartheid ended and ANC won the first democratic vote of South Africa in 1994, led by Nelson Mandela, the South African Schools Act was implemented in order to create equality in education for both white and black students.
For 50 years, apartheid education was designed to give privilege to whites. In every way, from the training of teachers to the building of schools, apartheid education entrenched inequality. But years after its demise, the education system is still in dire straits. That is in part due to the government's failure to educate young South Africans, particularly black ones.
Currently, this law stands true today. However, the inequalities of economic status of minority whites and majority blacks are still very uneven, as education is expensive and private schooling is inaccessible for masses of the South African black population. They seek out cheaper education options and are not able to get the same resources and teachings they would find at a private school.
One has got to give credit to the national government for all the efforts that they have done to bridge the gap between the previously disadvantaged and the advantaged schools in terms of monetary allocation. Unfortunately, this has not yet manifested itself in terms of the academic results.
Schools in South Africa are compulsory from ages 7 to 15, which is very good and allows students the accessibility to gain an education. This particular law targets poverty-stricken regions and allocates more funds to their schools in those areas in an effort to provide equality to the country. In most cases, this has been a very encouraging and successful law for schools and educational institutions, as the comparison of pre-1996 and post-1996 can be seen. But the divide in South Africa remains large, and the opportunities are more. They are not at the highest standard, and they will not be available everywhere in the country. Beautiful country, and that the children of South Africa are the future of South Africa. So with continued funding and appropriate funding in the correct locations and institutes, then South Africa will be able to bolster an improved education for all its people, black or white, rich or poor.